Welcome to the Future of Structures podcast, where we talk to the experts who are evolving our buildings for tomorrow. And here is your host, Adam Jones.
Today we are speaking with Stefan, who is the founder of Solar Analytics, who provides smart monitoring to get the most out of your home energy. So Stefan has been in the solar game for a very long time, over 20 years, so he's seen it develop a lot over the last few decades. So in this episode, we're going to discuss the past, the present, and the future of solar technology, opportunities for monitoring your house, and the economics of using solar power. It was great speaking to a solar expert. I had a ball speaking with Stefan. I hope you enjoy listening. Without any further ado, here is Stefan.
Look, I've been in solar now for just over 21 years. It's a date I remember because I started a month after my first child was born.
Okay.
So very easy for me to remember. So in the last 21 years, I've done most things in the solar industry. I started out in research and development with a company called Pacific Solar. We were doing a revolutionary new thin film which came out of the University of New South Wales, and we were going to revolutionise solar. We had our lofty goal of achieving the magical $1 a watt.
Yeah, okay. So can you elaborate on thin film just a little bit, as if you're speaking to, say, like a 7-year-old or something like that?
Certainly. So all of the solar panels that we see around on our roofs today are made from what's called crystalline silicon, and they're typically around 300 microns thick, so maybe a couple of sheets of paper in thickness. Well, at the time, silicon was very expensive for various reasons, and we thought, well, if we only use a fraction of that amount of silicon, so the thickness of a human hair, we can make this solar, because at the moment solar was $10 a watt, so very expensive. To put a system on your roof would cost you $20,000.
Yeah, wow.
And we thought, wow, that's too expensive.
Yeah.
So we said, look, if we do it really thin, we can make this much better. Anyway, so we did that and we ended up building. I went to Germany, we built a factory in Germany, and we did amazingly well. We managed to get it down to, we had one of the largest factories in the world, and we got the price of our revolutionary new thin film panels down to about $2 a watt.
Yeah, wow.
Which
from
was
10. That's
from
crazy.
10, which is fantastic. The only thing was the goalpost shifted, and the cost of the thickness of multiple sheets of paper silicon came down to the magical $1 a watt.
Gotcha.
We weren't competitive and we went under.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Cool. And then, so what inspired you with solar back then? Was it sustainability? Because that wasn't such a big focus then, I believe, or I guess you.
So for me personally, I'm an electrical engineer, and for me it was both sustainability and elegance. So the idea of all this free energy just falling on the roofs all around us just seemed to me like, if we can make this work, what a beautiful way to create electricity, which is really one of the bedrocks of our society.
Yeah, definitely. So it went from $10 a watt when you started down to $1 a watt at some stage in your other startup. What is it now, and what is the trend with, I guess, the cost of solar at the moment?
So look, over the past 3 decades, it's been reducing at a 22% learning rate, which means that every time we double the total volume of global production of solar, it drops 22% in price. So that's driven this change from when we were producing a very small amount at $10 a watt to now when we're producing millions of solar panels a year. In fact, now it's at 50 cents a watt.
Yeah, wow.
And it's continuing to come down.
Yeah, fantastic. So it's not necessarily the technology, it's actually just the volume of production that's driving it more so?
It's both. So when you have high volume production, you have more money being spent on research and development.
Yep.
What we haven't seen is a fundamental step change in the type of technology being used. So if I took one of our highly efficient 300 watt 50 cents a watt panels today and I gave it back to my professor back then 30 years ago, he would recognise every single element and process in that panel. Yep. Some of it, if he got into the detail, he'd go, oh, that's a great idea. I never thought of that. Because it took him 10 years to think of it later on. But you get the idea. There's no step change. It's just incremental improvements all along the line.
It's all going the right direction, it seems. So can you tell us a little bit about solar analytics and why you started it?
Yeah, certainly.
And
so
what you guys do?
I actually moved then from the thin film into the standard crystalline silicon, and I worked with a company called Suntech, who is the world's largest solar panel manufacturer. and helped them. I was their technical director, and I ran their commercial arm to help them grow solar sales across Australia and internationally. And I was responsible for everything from residential solar up to the large development of very large 100 megawatt solar power plants.
Wow.
One of the things that frustrated me was that I had previously spent a lot of my time increasing the lifetime and durability of panels. So the standards that I wrote have basically been adopted globally now, which has meant that we've got more reliable panels because they're tested much more rigorously.
Yeah.
However, what we did notice was that not all panels were meeting that criteria, and it was very frustrating for us that the incentives that were in place didn't recognise between good quality and poorer quality solar panels.
Yeah.
So what we wanted to do was create an incentive for people to actually install the good quality ones, because we know those can last for 30 years. So I started, it was a spin-off from that company I was working with, Suntech, a company called Solar Analytics, which was to monitor a residential solar system for homeowners.
Yeah.
Basically, so that when homeowners spend their, at the time it was $10,000 and now it's under $5,000 for a solar system, they put a solar system on their roof, and we come along and we monitor it for them, and we manage that system so that we know it's always operating at its absolute peak performance, and they're getting every bit of solar energy out of that system that they can.
Yeah, awesome. So especially the residential scale, was it for a while a bit of a box ticking exercise getting in solar? So they weren't, so the quality for a period was of the installations and the actual panels, was that a bit below par for a while? And
yeah, look, I mean, we went through a regime in Australia where successive governments of both persuasions introduced this roller coaster of ridiculously generous and then ridiculously punitive feed-in tariffs and rebates. You know, John Howard said, one of the classics was, he said, oh, look, here's $7,000 and, you know, systems cost $20,000. So he said, if I give you $7,000, that's okay. Who's going to take that? No one's going to do that. What he didn't realise is that as people, we're very ingenious. So what that drove was a lot of installers to go, well, if I buy really cheap panels and really cheap inverters, I can buy them for $7,000 because the price has come down a bit, and I can sell them to people for almost free.
Gotcha.
And because it went through the roof.
Yeah.
But that really incentivised people to put in poor quality panels. Because, you know, if I come to you and I say, hey, do you want a high quality panel for $12,000 or a poor quality system for $10,000, you'll choose the good quality.
Of course.
On the other hand, if I say, do you want a free system or do you want to pay $4,000, $2,000 for it, you're going to say, give me the free one.
Free one, of course. Yeah, definitely, that's how it works. So can you tell us the process of when solar analytics come in and how the process works to monitor the solar and the energy in the building?
Yeah, sure. So what we do, we spent 25 person years with some of the best meteorologists and solar engineers in the world. You know, Dr. Jesse Copper and Dr. Jonathan Dorr and Dr. John Laird, and all these people who'd spent their lives as experts in their field, pulling together some automated algorithms. And we really sit at this beautiful nexus in technology where solar has become affordable, machine to machine communications, so through your mobile phone, has now become affordable, and these large machine learning and data processing capability has become possible. So we did all of that, and we now created all of these patented algorithms that sit in the cloud, and they analyse all of the details about your specific solar system, where you live, how many panels you've got, what brand they are, how much shading you're getting. We look at where the sun is, how much sun we're getting on a day-to-day basis. We look at the performance of nearby systems for benchmarking, and all these things. So we can now, surprisingly accurately, determine exactly how well your solar system is performing.
Awesome.
And if it's not performing well, we can even then go and tell you why it's not and what actions need to be taken to make it work at its peak.
Yeah, fantastic. So someone installs it and then it's obvious that it's not working properly. What are some of the most common reasons that you see that it's actually not, you know, they're not at full optimization or full utilization?
Yeah, so there's a wide variety of different reasons. So A lot of our monitoring and energy management gets installed when you first buy a solar system, but we have some systems under monitoring that are now over 20 years old.
Yeah, okay.
So obviously you get very different faults between those two different types. With a new solar system, one of the things we've corrected quite a few times is the solar installer has installed the wrong control program into the inverter. So it's tripping off or not working at its peak.
Okay.
So we can identify that because every fault signature is slightly different and our machine learning picks that up. Another common fault that we've seen is what's called an earth fault. So that's where there's a small leakage between the solar panel and the ground, and that means that the inverter has to trip off every now and then. And that's very hard to pick up unless you're doing our sort of monitoring.
Without monitoring that, you got no idea of, and obviously this translates to costs on the person with the solar.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we calculate that we save our customers on average $270 a year in just pure solar performance.
Yeah, wow, that's crazy. So do you also monitor to batteries? So I'm interested in speaking about batteries also and how they maybe interact with your analytics with the solar.
Yeah, we do both. I mean, at the moment, there's 1.7 million people in Australia who've got solar on their roof. There's about 15,000 who have a battery, and most of those are off-grid.
Yes.
So it's growing, and we see there'll be a bit of growth next year, and I think a lot of growth in 2019. So we're starting to see our customers looking at that, and we provide a battery calculator for them to help them choose the right size battery for their site, and then we can help them monitor and manage their battery.
Yeah, cool. So how much solar can one, say, residential building take in actually? Can it get close towards fully off the grid without? Yeah, can you just talk through that process?
Yeah, so I spent the first 20 years of my life in solar when I was doing designing systems for people's homes, optimizing the perfect size system for their energy usage to give them the best economic return. Just in the last 3 months, and I mean literally in the last 3 months, because of the rising electricity prices and the continuing decline in solar system prices, that whole equation has changed, and it's made my life as a designer infinitely easier.
Yes.
Because now the optimal amount of solar to put on your roof is cover the entire roof. South, north, east and west.
Yeah, wow.
Even on the south side, putting in those extra panels on the south side gives you a great return, because you can generate on your roof electricity cheaper than you can get it from the grid at any time of day, even off-peak.
Awesome. So as a percentage of your daily or electricity over a year, I know there's probably complex ways of describing this, but as a percentage, how much electricity would that be?
Look, the size of the system someone puts in varies enormously. It used to average at about 2 kilowatts on your roof, which for a typical home of 4 people would generate over the course of the year maybe 30% of their electricity usage.
Yep.
Now people are putting on average a 6 kilowatt system. So typically people are now generating enough electricity. They're generating as much as electricity as they use. However, it's not necessarily being used at the same time. So we find our customers actually export, on average, about 45% of their electricity.
Oh, wow.
So they self-consume about 55% and they export about 45% back to the grid where it's used by other people.
Gotcha.
So, electricity is like water. Whatever the billing is done by the retailer, the electricity just flows from your house to the next neighbour who needs it.
Okay, awesome. So, and I guess the roof size area is kind of fixed. So at what rate is the actual efficiency of the solar going up, and what is it now? And what do you think if there's a peak that it can get to?
Yeah, so look, when I started, it was around 11% efficient. Now it's at around 19% efficient. And I expect it will go up to about 25% efficient over the next decade.
Yeah, awesome.
So that's improving. The big thing really, though, is just cover your whole roof. Honestly, every single surface, unless it's permanently shaded, cover the whole roof.
Yeah, awesome. And can you incorporate with the data from the weather in any ways?
So we show weather on our portal, and we use that to provide an accurate comparison between how much you should produce and how much you are producing. We also use that to automatically account for shading. So if you get shading in the morning, for example, we automatically can identify what that looks like, and we take that into account. Quite recently, we actually sent out a notification to a customer, which I'm a little bit of a greenie. Yep. It was a little bit conflicting for me because we notified them. We said, hey, it's evident that over the past year, your tree has grown a bit, and you're now getting a bit of shading, and it's causing you about 15% loss. The customer said, oh, thanks for letting me know. I'm starting up the chainsaw. Okay. Well, look, their call. If they want to prune, that was the point. We wanted them to prune. Oh, definitely. And I think he was pulling our chain a bit as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Fantastic. So as we get toward the end now, so what is most exciting for you for the future of our buildings?
Look, the most exciting thing for me is something called peer-to-peer or shared solar trading. Mm. So, today, if you look at the peak solar penetration, it's accounting for at the most maybe 30% of energy production on the highest possible day. Mm. So we can clearly increase the amount of solar. We can actually increase the amount of rooftop solar on our grid by 10x, 10 times as much before we even need storage. Mm. So what's exciting for me is there's some new initiatives, and we're one of many companies who are doing this, where we're allowing people with a lot of solar on their roof to share that solar with the people next door who maybe can't put solar on their roof because it's shaded, or they have a much smaller roof, or they're in an apartment, or they're renting, or whatever it is.
Yeah, awesome.
And that actually makes for a much more resilient and more efficient energy system.
Okay. So, and why is that? How does it make it more?
Well, what it means is that if you generate your electricity locally, you're not having to transport it all the way. So, if you generate it from a coal-fired power station, in the Hunter Valley at the moment, they generate electricity and it costs them to generate it 8 cents a kilowatt hour. Yeah. But they've then got to pay another 12 cents a kilowatt hour to transport it to you. Mm. If you're, in fact, generating it on your roof and it only costs you 6 cents a kilowatt hour to generate it, you can then sell it to your neighbour. And at the moment, you still have to pay that full 12 cents a kilowatt hour to transport the electricity. But in future, you won't, because you're only transporting it next door.
Yeah.
Why would you want to pay the freeway toll to go to Brisbane if you're only driving to the local shop?
Awesome. And just a little bit off topic, is coal necessary for our whole power system, or can we, in what time frame do you think we might be able to get ourselves off it?
Look, today coal is absolutely necessary. And coal has been the backbone of our electricity generation for the last 50 years or more. And it's done wonderful things for our society. But it's no longer the cheapest, no longer the most economical, and it's certainly not the most sustainable way of us creating electricity.
Yes.
There's no doubt that sometime this century we will go to a 100% renewable grid.
Yeah.
That's Goldman Sachs stated that just the other day. There's no doubt that will occur. How quickly it occurs really just depends how many roadblocks the government puts in the way. Because at the moment, solar and renewable energy generation is actually cheaper than new coal-fired or gas-fired power stations. And I think the key thing that will enable all sources of generation are intermittent. You look at Liddell, it's been operating at sub 50% capacity for years, and it chunks on and off all the time due to maintenance issues. But wind and solar are also obviously variable in nature. What makes distributed energy really, really valuable is the fact that it's generated where it's used, and once you add storage into that in the form of stationary storage or in the form of electric vehicles, suddenly you get this immense distributed ability to level out the whole supply and demand equation. Yeah. And that is what will halve our electricity costs. Renewable energy is the only path forward to cheaper electricity.
Yeah, I totally agree. Another question, subtly different. What do you think will have the biggest impact on the buildings industry in the future, which you might have just touched on already?
For my view, in terms of energy, it will be simply covering the whole roof. We're seeing the project developers starting to get on board now. We're seeing large commercial sites doing it. And, Woolworths and Bunnings and Mitre 10 and all of these organisations, they're not covering their roofs with solar because they want to be green or join the Paris Accord or anything like that. They're doing it because it makes economic sense.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And that's for the, I guess, lower density buildings. Do you think there's a future for higher density buildings with clear glazing solar windows and technology like this? Yeah,
potentially. I think that's a new technology, and I think it's really hard to forecast exactly where that will go. I think they've got a lot of hurdles to get over.
Yeah.
My view is that the greater diversity and distribution we have, the more robust and reliable it is. So I think, we will see a lot of that, and we'll see lots of small things contributing to our energy mix.
Yeah, definitely. And if people want to find out more from Solar Analytics, where should they go, or yourself?
Yeah, look, just go to our website. There's all the information there, and if you want to give us a call, please do. So just, solaranalytics.com.
Hey guys, Adam here. Just before you go, just one quick request. If you're enjoying the show, please leave a review. It helps our rating and ranking on iTunes, so more people can hear from the people who are making our cities better places for our future.